Um, I guess I'll just jump right in, guys. I'll first say thank you for inviting me to come and talk with everybody. I really appreciate that. It's always an honor to get an opportunity to kind of share your story with people. And in that respect, I guess I feel a little bit blessed. I'll tell you that I intend to kind of keep it a little bit short and brief because I want you guys the opportunity to kind of guide and direct our evening as however you guys would like. But so it might feel a little bit abrupt or or violently sudden in some of the things that I might share, but but I don't mean it to be. But to give you a little bit about just my story and my background is that to kind of I guess I'll start somewhere in the middle and then kind of take you on the journey that a lot about what my book kind of goes through, and that is that I grew up here, kind of similar to Casey. I guess I grew up in Plano. I went to a lot of different churches. My parents were Christians, I guess, by namesake, not really so much by practicing. And and while they went to church a lot as kids, they had kind of fell away from going to church. And so I found myself going to a lot of churches with a lot of different friends and hearing a lot of different doctrine as a kid. And as you can imagine, that was kind of confusing. And so I grew up kind of making God out to be whoever I wanted him to be, rather who he actually was. And by the time I got a little bit older, what that kind of turned into was a little bit of a loss of identity in where and who I needed to be. And while I thought I was a Christian, I probably wasn't for the vast majority of my life. What I was a legalist. I lived a very, what I thought was a good works life. I never drank. I didn't smoke. I didn't do drugs. I held myself out to be fairly unpromiscuous, and I thought I was doing all the right things. And so because of that, it was like I was better than most, right? And when I got into my early 30s, that wasn't going so well for my life because I was following my own path, and that led to a lot of pain and a lot of destruction. A failed marriage, two stepkids that I lost a relationship with because of that failed marriage, that I didn't have any rights to, my own son who was lost and devastated and was violent and injuring children at school, and a lot of different things that was a result of that. And that kind of led to me seeking a different path. I met my current wife at that time in my life, and had to rediscover that I really wasn't a Christian, and that's when I learned that I was a legalist, and that was very eye-opening. And through a sermon that I heard, it set me on the path of getting to know who God was, and kind of rediscovering that I had never read the Bible for myself. I had always just heard what pastors wanted me to hear, and that was a revelation for me. And so that kind of took me down a whole different road and different journey. And what that really revealed to me was where it kind of all started. And so what that brings me to was that I was a survivor of sexual abuse when I was about 8 years old. Till about the age of 12, there was a family member that I was a victim of, and that had a huge impact on obviously my life, but obviously also on shaping just my mental state in a lot of different ways. And it's shaped how I saw the world. And so when I got older, I had never told anybody that. My current wife here is actually the first person I had ever even talked to about that. And needless to say, that was shocking for a lot of people when I finally decided to reveal that information. But I think it was, it was interesting to learn more about God at that time in my life, because what he revealed to me was that it was all a part of his plan. I didn't know that at the time, but what he was preparing me for, even then as a child, was a life of trials, right? And I think a lot of what my book talked about was that trials is what really shapens and strengthens our faith in so many different ways, but it tests our fortitude, and it tests our steadfastness to make sure that when the time comes that you really have to have the conviction that you know who he is, you really know that you know him, right? And and what that led to in my life was about 6 years, I guess, into our marriage. My wife went out of town one day. She was going out of town for this marriage, this marriage. So about 6 years in, I stayed behind and worked, as I often did. And my wife and the kids went down to San Antonio to visit her family. And I woke up one morning and I was sick. And it was odd, but I was like, this feels different. It feels weird. I don't normally go to the doctor. I'm kind of just a typical hard-headed guy, right? But it just felt like, I was just beyond exhausted. Like there was something really off and wrong. So I decided to go to the doctor, and that led to a diagnosis of pneumonia, which was a misdiagnosis. But they gave me some antibiotics. They sent me home. I went back to the doctor a few days later. They're like, there's something still wrong. We're not really sure what it is. I'll shorten the story for you. 44 days later, I died.